Welcome to Resilient Schools. I'm here at the Bridging to Resilience conference and excited to have Tammy Fellers here. Tammy, would you mind just introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. I'm Tammy Fellers. This is my 13th year with ESSDACK, and I have two roles. I'm a member of the Inspired Leadership Team, where we do leadership coaching, leadership consulting, really helping schools with the culture of their school or district or team, whichever the case may be. And then I'm also the professional learning director here, so I oversee kind of all of those teams and making things click together with resilience and inspired leadership and our core content areas as well.
Okay, cool. When I was here yesterday, I saw people getting coached during the day just in the hallway. Tell me about those coaching sessions that happen at the conference.
We're a team of 4 certified professional coaches, and we offered to our participants, if they had something they wanted to be coached on, we could do that. And one of the things that we really focus on is the difference between coaching and therapy. We are not therapists, we're coaches. We believe all the answers lie within, and our goal is to look forward. Maybe we'll look at what triggered us or what's blocking us, but how do we help someone who's been ruminating on this thing? They can't get that last chapter of the book done. They have a difficult conversation they're avoiding, and we coach them to take action. And we don't provide solutions. We don't provide answers. We provide space and curiosity. So really giving them the space to be heard. We're a neutral party. We're not involved. We don't know the people. We don't even need to know the people. But we're going to ask really great questions is our job to get you to want to take action and move forward, resolve this conflict.
Yeah, and so you gave a couple different examples. So it's not just coaching for only school-related situations. It's whatever you need, right?
Absolutely. It is whatever you need. Oftentimes a person comes to us with a school-related thing that really starts to open up. There's a couple of blocks that are getting in the way, because the reality is personal impacts home and home impact, or professional, and professional impacts personal. And so oftentimes maybe they're missing that conflict that's happening between the two. And as we hold the mirror up with kindness, it allows them to see, oh, here's where that disconnect is coming into play.
Yeah. So I coach school principals also. And one of the things that is really interesting is that sometimes they don't bring up those personal issues when the personal issues are really the things that are causing the block at school, for example. And so being able to say, look, it's okay to talk about something else that's not specifically school related. There's still, we can still do that. So what, you said that they're certified coaches. What is the certification that you guys have?
So we went through IPEC, the Institute for Professional Ethics and Coaching.
Okay.
We're energy leadership coaches, and sometimes people can look icky about that word or not sure about that word. If you would like to replace that word with attitude, mindset, awareness, consciousness, any of those words will really fit in there. I said we're a member of the Inspired Leadership Team, and if you were present in front of me looking at any of our literature, the I and the N are capitalized, and for Inspired. We are not inspirational, raw, like cheerleaders. I'm not saying we aren't going to be your biggest cheerleader, but for us, the I and the N are capitalized because leadership begins with N. It's about the internal work that we as leaders have the opportunity to do to be able to be our best self, influence others, lead others. If we can't lead ourselves, we are not going to be successful leading other people. And so we are energy leadership coaches and really look at what is our level of awareness for what we're experiencing, why we're experiencing it, and how that is impacting those around us. And so we have 3 pieces we look at, the ABCs. The A is awareness, raising our awareness so that we can build joy, trust, teamwork, collaboration, whatever word you want to fill in there. We got to raise our awareness to be able to build what we want to build so we can be conscious leaders versus reactive leaders.
Yeah. That's great. A couple things, the energy, God, spirituality, all that kind of stuff. When it comes down to it, we're all talking about the same thing. When it comes down to it, we're all talking about the same thing. We're just using whatever words we're comfortable with.
Right.
And so what I tell people is I'm going to use these words that I'm fluent in. And if you don't like it, just change it to what you're fluent in. And I'll talk to you using my language, and you talk to me using your language, and it's totally fine. We don't need to get into a debate about energy or mindset or awareness or whatever. It just doesn't matter because it's really the same thing. And I found a lot of power myself in that because I'm not so self-conscious about it as I was before. And a good example is I prefer to use the word love when I'm talking about loving others. And somebody the other day said that it was unconditional positive regard. And it's, you know what? If you want to use that word, that's fine. I'm still going to use love. If that makes you uncomfortable, I'm sorry about that. But I'm going to speak in the language that makes sense to me. And I think that if we can do more of that and let people believe what they want to believe and use the language that works for them. Now, as a coach, I can be adaptable and use your language if that helps you feel better and feel good. But at the same time, it's also a lot easier to be fluent in your own language than it is in another language, right? So the second piece of that is talking about conscious leaders. What does that mean specifically?
I'm choosing my action versus that maladaptive behavior just coming out of me.
Yeah.
And we want to, I think about with kids, right? They have behaviors that sometimes we want to replace with a new one, right? Instead of, when somebody asks them to do something and they snap back no, if you think about it home and a mom, we want to instill a new behavior. We all have those.
Yeah.
As a 53-year-old, I have behaviors that the second this happens, it's a trigger for me. This happens next.
Yeah.
If I can raise my awareness around when this trigger happens,
Yeah.
can I do something different? And one of the pieces that we just really look at is within a team, what are those triggers that we have? And when we react, we do damage. We break down the parts of the team. So I can still be triggered. That may not change for me. I can put all the shields up sometimes I want or whatever, and that is still a trigger for me. But I can choose how I respond. And so for us, that's what we mean by conscious leadership. I can still experience fear, worry, doubt, anger, defiance, skepticism. I don't have to lead from there. I can lead from somewhere else. If I'm aware of that, I can make a conscious-based decision versus a fear-based decision.
Yeah. One of the things I really like about that is that it's not reactive, that it's me intentionally choosing to act this certain way and do things in a way that I believe is best. And so I equate that to, for example, going to the gym. If you've decided that you're going to be a person who goes to the gym every single day, then you're going to go to the gym every single day, even when you don't feel like it. If you're a person who's decided you're going to brush your teeth every day, you're going to brush your teeth every day, even if you don't feel like it. A lot of times we justify or make excuses for why we shouldn't have to do that thing that we don't feel like doing in the moment when, and especially in a leadership situation, a lot of times I didn't feel like doing the right thing, but I did the right thing because it was what I had committed to doing and I chose to be conscious about it. Other times I was reactive. And anytime that I was reactive, then all bets were off as to how that would go. But when I was conscious, I knew what the result would be, and I could stick by it rather than getting weak and saying, never mind, I'll just do something else because that's too hard. When it got really hard, I could still stick by it and it worked much better. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When you can take that approach in your leadership, it opens the doors for you to do all kinds of amazing other things because you're not stuck in this idea of just reacting to everything. And right now, especially, schools are full of chaos and difficult things happening, and people are just reacting. They're not thinking long term. They're not doing the things they know they should be doing. So if you could narrow down some of the things that a conscious leader does on a regular basis, what would be some of those things?
Listens with curiosity. Listens for understanding and clarity versus listens to prove their way, to prove their point, to
Yeah.
really is just a listener.
Boy, if everybody just listened, that would change things a lot. That would be great. Give me one other thing that conscious leaders do regularly.
Communicate with vulnerability and flexibility.
What does that look like?
Willing to share my heart, and by that, a vulnerable leader to me is willing to say to you, I messed up. You know what? I reacted in that moment where I got some things to fix and do differently. So I'm willing to communicate that with you. I'm also willing to communicate with you, hey, we need to work on this. This is one thing. Like, I'm willing to have that conversation with you because I've built a trusting relationship. And so I'm willing to have that conversation with you and say, hey, here's one thing that as a school community, it's essential that I ask you to work on. Okay. And then the flexibility piece for me is, as I was a principal, I've worked at the district office level, and now I work mostly with superintendents, assistant superintendents at that level, is that willing to be flexible in our thinking because it's ever changing. And I can't go, yes, do I want a path? Do I want a vision? All of those things. But having that flexibility, and the path probably isn't going to look like what we thought the path would look like when we started. And so that ability to be flexible, and it's not to take that personal that I'm not a good enough leader, I couldn't go straight there. So that is my flexibility and vulnerability piece.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. I think that flexibility and vulnerability is so important. And too often we think there's a certain way we have to do things, or we can't vary from it, or if we're different with one person, then we're not being authentic. And I think that would be the other thing that I would add to that flexibility and vulnerability is the authenticity, that you're really who you are. And what I've found with this piece, and I'm still trying to articulate it, Tammy, so give me a second to work through this. When you are authentic, you don't need a script. You don't need a playbook. You don't need a thing to tell you what to do in the moment because you're being authentic. When you're not being authentic, you need someone holding your hand saying, this is the next step. And we all want to be better and we all want to improve. But if we were just authentic, we might not need to improve as much as we think. And part of that challenge is that we have this idea of what we should be doing. And if it's not true to us, then it's really hard to do that and everybody can see through it. But we think that they can't. And so as I've made decisions, the decisions that I've made as a leader that were authentic were the ones where I could have the right kind of flexibility because it was focused on who I really was. And so I was true to myself, but I could also be like, yeah, I could bring down this or push this part up and be okay with that. Any thoughts on that? Like I said, I'm still working through this.
Sure. No, I think the authentic piece is so important to leadership. And I think the only thing I would have to add to that, I loved what you had to say, but I think the piece I would add to that is, and when I'm a conscious leader, I am being authentic. So if I go back to my example, I'm experiencing some fear, worry, doubt about this XYZ, but I'm taking that step back to lead from here. Mm-hmm. Somebody goes, you're not being, no, I am actually honoring those feelings, going, yeah, you guys, I got some worry around this, I got some fear around this, but I'm stepping up almost outside of myself, and it's a podcast, nobody can see my hands right now, and I talk with my hands, is stepping back and helping people make that connection. I'm still experiencing that emotion. I'm just choosing to lead and say, this is the way we want to go as a group. Mm-hmm. And so helping people make that connection, that's not being inauthentic. I don't have to sit in there and solve the problem from that level of consciousness. I can still experience it and take that moment to go, okay, here's what will take us down that journey. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally does. That's great. And I like the visual of you stepping outside and above yourself and saying, who do I really want to be in this moment? How do I really want to act? And let me act that way. And as time goes on, you'll change and grow and develop and become even better. And there are some times where you'll be like, I just do not have the strength to do what I need to be doing right now. But who do I really want to be? I want to be that person. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do it anyway because that's the right thing to do. That's who I want to be. And I'm being authentic. I'm being conscious and focused on doing that.
That reminds me of, and I will mess it up because I'm not Rachel. One of our coaches uses this story of who did the sculpture, David. Wow.
Michelangelo.
Okay.
Yep.
He carved away what David was not.
Yeah.
And that's as we think about ourselves, like, I really want to get down to the heart of who I am and carve away those things I'm not, that I've built over time as adaptive behaviors to air quote, protect myself and that fight, flight, or so I want to, as a leader, carve away what I'm not and really be my authentic self.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Tammy, thanks so much for being part of Resilient Schools and all the work that you're doing here at ESSDACK. Appreciate you being here on the show today.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure.
This episode was edited by Carter Black as part of the Davis Catalyst Center